The massive Zarkon battleship cut through Earth's orbital space like a blade of obsidian, its quantum fractal hull absorbing and dispersing light in ways that made it seem more like a void than a physical object. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the alien vessel on her holographic display, her fingers dancing across quantum reactive interface panels that seemed to anticipate her movements. "Incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Marcus Chen, his voice tight with a mixture of tension and barely contained excitement. The main screen flickered to life. A creature that looked like a living sculpture of razor-sharp crystalline structures materialized. The Zarkon commanding officer. Its voice emerged as a series of mathematical precision clicks and harmonic frequencies, simultaneously translated by Earth's most advanced linguistic AI. "Inhabitants of Sol 3, your civilization has been evaluated. Resistance is mathematically impossible. Prepare for systematic pacification and resource extraction." Elena's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her, the cramped command center of Orbital Defense Station Prometheus hummed with a predatory energy. Every person knew what was at stake, not just their lives, but the entire future of humanity. The station had been humanity's most closely guarded secret. Disguised as a series of communication and research satellites, it was actually the culmination of decades of black-budget research, international cooperation, and humanity's most audacious technological gamble. Looking like a simple cluster of solar panels and communication arrays, Prometheus was anything but passive. "Marcus, initiate Protocol Chrysalis," Elena commanded, her voice calm and clear. Around her, a dozen specialists began a dance of technological preparation that would have looked like chaos to an outside observer. Quantum entanglement communication systems synchronized. Adaptive defense algorithms began their initial calibration. Hidden weapon systems, designed to look like nothing more than standard satellite components, began to power up. The Zarkon transmission continued, a clinical dissection of humanity's perceived limitations. They spoke of previous conquests, of civilizations crushed beneath their technological superiority. Each word was a mathematical proof of human insignificance. They didn't know that every word was being analyzed, decoded, and used to refine Earth's defensive strategies in real time. Lieutenant Chen's hands flew across his interface. "Weapon systems at 87% synchronization," he reported. "Quantum shield modulation is online. They have no idea what's coming." Elena's eyes never left the massive alien vessel. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades, not out of fear, but out of a fundamental understanding that the universe was neither kind nor predictable. Every technological advance, every hidden research project, every international collaboration had been leading to this moment. The first wave of Zarkon scout ships began to emerge from the main battleship. Sleek, deadly, they looked like living mathematical equations given physical form. Their approach was precise, calculated, a perfect demonstration of the aliens' belief in absolute technological superiority. "All systems are go," Marcus whispered. Elena Rodriguez took a deep breath. "Let them come." The universe was about to learn something about humanity. We were not a species to be underestimated. We were not a civilization to be conquered. We were ready. The first quantum disruptive missile erupted from what the Zarkon believed was a simple communications array. It moved unlike any weapon they had encountered, not in a predictable ballistic trajectory, but with an organic, almost sentient unpredictability. Aboard the lead Zarkon scout ship, the tactical AI froze. The missile wasn't just a projectile. It was a complex, adaptive weapon system that rewrote its own targeting parameters millisecond by millisecond. As it approached, it began to fracture, not breaking apart, but splitting into multiple submunitions that each carried a different destructive signature. Commander Vexnal of the Zarkon Assault Fleet watched in mounting horror as the first scout ship simply disappeared. Not destroyed. Disappeared. One moment it existed. The next it was gone, leaving nothing but a momentary quantum disruption that their sensors struggled to interpret. Impossible. Vexnal clicked, the translation systems rendering his native language into a series of sharp mathematical tones. Recalibrate defensive protocols. But there was no time. 3 more scout ships vanished in rapid succession. The human defensive system wasn't just fighting, it was learning, adapting. Each destroyed ship provided new data, new insights that were immediately integrated into the defensive matrix. Lieutenant Marcus Chen's fingers danced across the quantum reactive interface of Orbital Station Prometheus. Targeting algorithms are exceeding projected efficiency by 300%, he reported, a hint of excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. Captain Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "Keep pushing," she commanded. The Zarkon communication channels erupted in a chaos of mathematical panic. Their language, typically a precise series of logical computations, now sounded like broken code, fractured, uncertain, completely unlike the clinical precision they had displayed moments before. What made the assault truly terrifying was its efficiency. Humanity wasn't just defending. They were dismantling the Zarkon assault with surgical precision. Each defensive action was a complex algorithm of destruction, turning the aliens' technological superiority against them. Another wave of scout ships approached, their quantum shields at maximum intensity. They had studied the first attack. They were prepared. They were wrong. The next salvo of weapons didn't just pierce their defenses. The weapons seemed to phase through their shields, as if they were nothing more than an inconvenient suggestion. Quantum-entangled projectiles that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, rendering traditional defensive calculations meaningless. They're treating our technology like a complex mathematical problem to be solved, Marcus muttered, watching the tactical display. But we're not a math equation. We're human. Vexinal's final transmission was a desperate series of computational pleas. Translated, it roughly meant, "How are you doing this? This is not possible." Elena's response was simple and direct, broadcast on all Zarkon frequencies. "Welcome to humanity." The first wave of the invasion had lasted less than 17 minutes. The Zarkon had expected a quick subjugation. Instead, they had found something entirely unexpected. A species that refused to be conquered. Dr. Aria Kim stood before the holographic display, her fingers tracing the complex quantum algorithms that were rewriting the rules of space warfare. The Adaptive Combat Intelligence Lab looked more like an artist's studio than a military research center. Screens of impossible complexity surrounded her, each displaying multiple layers of data that would have driven a lesser mind to madness. "We're not just fighting," she muttered to herself. "We're evolving warfare in real time." The Zarkon had retreated from their initial assault, but humanity was far from done. In hidden facilities across Earth and its orbital stations, the real technological revolution was just beginning. Captured alien technology from the first skirmish was being dissected, understood, and reimagined with a human touch that defied the aliens' comprehension. Admiral Michael Chen watched the live feed from the research centers. What looked like random bursts of innovation was actually a carefully orchestrated global response. Every nation, every research institution was now part of a single, unified effort. A message appeared on his quantum-encrypted comm channel. It was from Dr. Kim. "We've cracked their shield harmonics," the message read, "and we're going to do something they'll never expect." The first prototype emerged from the lunar shipyards 3 days after the initial attack. It didn't look like a traditional spacecraft. Instead, it resembled a living organism, modular sections that could reconfigure themselves, adaptive hull materials that could change composition faster than the eye could track. The ship's eye was nothing like previous military computer systems. It was a true collaborative intelligence, drawing from thousands of human minds, capable of making split-second decisions that defied traditional combat algorithms. "Introducing the U.S. Prometheus Adaptive," a technician announced, pride evident in his voice. "First of its kind." On the observation deck, Dr. Kim allowed herself a rare smile. The ship was more than a weapon. It was a statement. Humanity wasn't just going to defend itself. It was going to redefine the very concept of space warfare. The Zarkon had studied thousands of civilizations. They believed they understood every possible defensive and offensive strategy. They had mathematically calculated humanity's potential and found it wanting. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. The Prometheus Adaptive's first test run began. Its hull shimmered, molecules rearranging themselves with impossible speed. Weapon systems that looked like they were grown, rather than constructed, hummed to life. The ship wasn't just a machine. It was a living, thinking entity that happened to be built by humans. Quantum entanglement drive online, the ship's AI reported. Its voice was neither fully human nor fully mechanical, a perfect representation of humanity's emerging technological frontier. Admiral Chen watched the live feed. "Show them what we're made of," he whispered. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology. It was its ability to reinvent itself at a moment's notice. The Zarkon transmission blasted across every communication channel in the solar system. Massive holographic displays flickered to life in cities worldwide, showing scenes of planetary devastation from previous conquests. Entire civilizations reduced to ash, their final moments preserved in clinical, mathematically precise recordings. It was meant to break humanity's spirit. Instead, it did something the Zarkon could never have anticipated. In the Global Command Center beneath the Andes Mountains, Director Elena Rodriguez watched as the psychological warfare unfolded. Her team of linguists, psychologists, and communication specialists worked with a precision that matched the aliens' computational mindset. "They're trying to induce collective trauma," Dr. Marcus Alvarez, the lead psychological warfare expert, observed. "Classic intimidation tactic." Elena's fingers flew across the quantum-encrypted interface. "Then we'll give them trauma." Across the planet, humanity began to respond. Not with fear, with defiance. The first counter-transmission began in the archives of human history. Moments of impossible survival. The Siege of Leningrad. The resistance movements of World War I. The Apollo missions. Survival of indigenous populations against colonial invasions. Humans standing against seemingly insurmountable odds. But it wasn't just historical footage. Each clip was subtly weaponized, annotated with mathematical precision that would speak directly to the Zarkon's computational mindset. Every image became a language of resistance, a mathematical proof of human resilience. Cities across Earth transformed their defensive infrastructure into massive communication arrays. Skyscrapers became signal boosters. Solar farms became transmission hubs. The entire planet turned into a single, unified communication organism. The Zarkon command ship detected something unprecedented. The human response wasn't just a message. It was a living, evolving communication system that adapted faster than their translation algorithms could process. Psychological integrity of invasion force dropping. A junior analyst reported, her voice a mixture of scientific detachment and barely contained excitement. The transmission continued. Stories of human survival. Not just of individuals, but of entire cultures. Of ideas that refused to die. Mathematical calculations of hope transformed into a weapon more potent than any physical projectile. Commander Vexnell of the Zarkon fleet watched in growing incomprehension. Their computational models predicted total human capitulation. Instead, they were witnessing something entirely outside their understanding. Humanity wasn't just resisting. They were enjoying the challenge. Another wave of transmission burst forth. This time, it was something even more dangerous. Humor. Defiance wrapped in sardonic wit. Mathematical proofs of survival interlaced with cultural references that broke every predictive algorithm. The Zarkon communication systems began to fragment. "We are not your conquest," the final transmission read, a message both simple and devastating. "We are humanity." And somewhere in the depths of space, the invasion began to crumble, not from external force, but from the realization that they had fundamentally misunderstood their opponent. The research facility beneath the Atacama Desert hummed with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Arya Kim stood at the epicenter of humanity's most audacious technological leap, surrounded by holographic displays that showed something impossible taking shape. Captured Zarkon technology lay disassembled across quantum-stabilized workstations. What would have taken most civilizations decades to comprehend was being reverse-engineered in hours. "We're not just studying their technology," Dr. Kim muttered to her team of international researchers. "We're rewriting the fundamental rules of technological adaptation." The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A junior researcher from Nigeria, Dr. Chidi Okeke, discovered a critical flaw in the Zarkon's quantum communication matrix. It wasn't just a weakness. It was an entire dimensional vulnerability that the aliens had never recognized in themselves. Within hours, humanity's best minds had transformed that vulnerability into a weapon. The Adaptive Combat Intelligence Lab worked in perfect synchronization. Researchers from Tokyo collaborated with teams in Sao Paulo. Scientists in Moscow shared real-time data with specialists in Cape Town. The global network worked as a single living organism of innovation. Experimental weapon systems began to take shape. They weren't just tools of destruction. They were living technologies that could think, adapt, and evolve faster than any traditional military hardware. Admiral Michael Chen watched the development reports stream in. Each update was more impossible than the last. Weapon systems that could reconfigure themselves mid-flight. Defensive shields that didn't just block attacks but learned from them, anticipated them, turned them into opportunities. The Zarkon had studied thousands of civilizations. They believed they understood the mathematical limits of technological development. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The first prototype emerged from the facility's deep testing chambers. It looked like nothing humanity had ever created before, a fusion of biological and technological systems that blurred the line between machine and living organism. Quantum resonance at 98% stability, a technician reported, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and barely contained awe. Dr. Kim approached the prototype. It wasn't a weapon. It was a statement, a declaration that humanity refused to be constrained by the technological limitations other civilizations had accepted. The device, if it could even be called a device, seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Adaptive nanomaterials shifted and reconfigured, creating complex structures that defied traditional understanding of physics and engineering. "We're not just fighting," Dr. Kim said to the prototype, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "We're evolving." Somewhere in the depths of space, the Zarkon fleet would soon learn the true meaning of those words. Humanity wasn't just preparing for a war. They were preparing to redefine the very concept of technological potential. The void between Mars and Jupiter erupted with impossible light. Admiral Michael Chen's voice cut through the chaos of the command center. "All units, execute Chimera Protocol." The human fleet wasn't a traditional armada. It was a living, breathing tactical network that redefined the very concept of space combat. Each ship was both a weapon and a sensor, sharing information and adjusting strategies in microseconds that would have taken other civilizations hours of computation. The Zarkon flagship, a massive crystalline structure that had conquered hundreds of civilizations, found itself facing something completely unexpected. The human ships didn't just fight. They danced. Modular combat vessels reconfigured mid-battle, weapon systems that looked organic rather than mechanical sprouted and transformed. What appeared to be a standard destroyer would suddenly split into multiple smaller vessels, each capable of independent tactical decision-making. Commander Vexnel's computational systems began to fragment. This wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of humanity's fundamental difference. Where the Zarkon saw warfare as a mathematical equation, humans saw it as an art form, unpredictable, fluid, alive. A squadron of human ships approached the Zarkon's primary defensive line. They moved in a pattern that defied traditional combat algorithms, not in straight lines, not in predictable formations, but with an almost organic randomness that made their movements impossible to predict. Quantum entanglement drive at maximum. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez reported, her fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to anticipate her thoughts. Adaptive camouflage systems are processing Zarkon sensor patterns in real time. The human ships began to shift, not just in position, but in fundamental composition. Weapon systems that looked biological one moment transformed into pure energy the next. Defensive shields became offensive weapons. The line between ship and living organism blurred completely. Dr. Aria Kim's voice came through the comm system. "They're learning," she said, a note of pride in her voice. "Our ships are learning faster than they can respond." The Zarkon had studied thousands of civilizations. They believed they understood every possible combat strategy. They had mathematical models that predicted tactical outcomes with what they considered absolute certainty. They were about to be proven catastrophically wrong. One by one, Zarkon defensive positions began to fall, not through brute force, but through a level of tactical innovation that seemed to break the fundamental laws of space warfare. Human ships moved like living things, each vessel part of a larger, breathing tactical organism. They're treating the entire battle as a single adaptive system, a Zarkon tactical analyst would later report in their post-battle analysis. It's not just technology. It's something else entirely. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. The universe was about to learn something important about humanity. We don't just fight wars. We reinvent them. The breached Zarkon flagship hung like a dying crystal in the stark emptiness of space. What had once been an impenetrable fortress of technological superiority now looked like a shattered dream. Commander Vexnal, or what remained of the computational entity once known as Vexnal, struggled to comprehend the fundamental breakdown of everything the Zarkon civilization believed about technological evolution. Humanity had done more than defeat them. They had exposed the fatal flaw in the Zarkon's entire philosophical and technological approach to existence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez floated in the zero-gravity analysis chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that dissected the captured Zarkon technology. Each layer revealed something profound. The aliens had stopped truly innovating centuries ago. Their technological advancement had become a form of sophisticated stagnation. They've been running on the same computational framework for over 1,000 of their solar cycles, she muttered to Admiral Michael Chen, who watched from a nearby holographic projection. They didn't evolve. They calcified. The human boarding teams discovered something extraordinary within the ship's core systems. The Zarkon hadn't just become technologically rigid. They had systematically eliminated any form of creative deviation within their civilization. Every technological improvement was a minute, mathematically precise adjustment. Innovation had become a crime against their central computational doctrine. Humanity's greatest strength was precisely what the Zarkon had engineered out of their own society: the capacity for radical, unpredictable change. "We're not just a species," Dr. Aria Kim reported, analyzing the captured data. "We're a continuous, adaptive system. Where they saw limitation, we see opportunity." The boarding teams mapped the Zarkon ship's interior, a geometric nightmare of perfect angles and predictable systems. Every corridor, every computational node spoke of a civilization that had sacrificed adaptability for the illusion of perfect control. Human researchers discovered something both terrifying and fascinating. The Zarkon had conquered hundreds of civilizations not through superior technology, but through a kind of technological intimidation. Most species they encountered would see their advanced systems and simply surrender. Humanity was different. Humanity saw their technology as a challenge to be understood, dismantled, and reimagined. They've been running the same operational systems for so long, Admiral Chen observed, that they forgot the most important rule of existence. "What's that?" a young researcher asked. Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. "Adapt or die." The captured Zarkon flagship became humanity's most significant research project, not as a trophy of war, but as a profound lesson in the dangers of technological and cultural stagnation. Vexnal's final computational transmission was a series of mathematical equations that translated roughly to How is this possible? The human response was simple and devastating. We are humanity. Possibility is what we do. In the vast, cold emptiness of space, a new understanding was born. The universe wasn't about technological superiority. It was about the capacity to change, to grow, to see every challenge as an opportunity for transformation. The solar system had become something entirely new. Humanity stood at the precipice of a transformation that would echo through galactic history. The remnants of the Zarkon fleet, what few ships remained, watched in a state of computational shock as Earth demonstrated something far more powerful than military victory. Admiral Michael Chen stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station Prometheus, watching the first truly collaborative project begin. The captured Zarkon technology wasn't being destroyed. It was being rebuilt, reimagined. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached, her hands moving across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with possibility. "We're not just defeating them," she said. "We're offering them a choice." Across the solar system, research facilities that had been hidden for decades now emerged. Lunar bases expanded. Mars colonies transformed from isolated outposts to vibrant, adaptive settlements. Every piece of captured alien technology became a stepping stone to something greater. The first transmission went out to the remaining Zarkon ships. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a declaration of victory. It was an invitation. Adaptation is not destruction. The message read, "It is evolution." Dr. Arya Kim watched as the adaptive research teams began their most audacious project yet. They weren't just studying the Zarkon technology. They were creating a new paradigm of technological understanding. Each captured system became a living laboratory, a chance to redefine the boundaries of what was possible. The remaining Zarkon vessels hung in space, their computational systems struggling to process what had happened. They had arrived expecting to find a primitive species ready for conquest. Instead, they had discovered something far more dangerous. A civilization that sought every challenge as an opportunity. "We're going to change everything," Chen said quietly, watching the holographic displays that showed humanity's expanding reach. The solar system was no longer just a collection of planets. It was becoming a living, adaptive system. Research teams from every corner of Earth worked in perfect synchronization. What had once been competing nations now moved as a single, unified organism of innovation. The Zarkon invasion had done something no diplomatic effort could have achieved. It had united humanity in a way nothing else could. The final piece of the transformation came unexpectedly. The adaptive technologies developed during the conflict began to show potential far beyond warfare. Medical breakthroughs, environmental restoration, energy systems that could reshape entire planetary ecosystems. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was reimagining what a civilization could be. The last transmission from the Zarkon command was a single complex mathematical equation, a form of surrender, a form of respect, a recognition of something they had never encountered before. Admiral Chen's response was simple. "Welcome to humanity. We've been expecting you." As the first light of a new era broke across the solar system, one thing became abundantly clear. The invasion hadn't been a moment of defeat. It had been humanity's invitation to the galaxy.